You've probably been told that to get the life you want, you need to work harder, chase more, and never stop proving yourself. But what if I told you that's the biggest lie keeping you stuck? The truth is, you're not blocked because you're lazy or incapable. You're blocked because deep down, a part of you still feels unworthy. And here's the twist. The moment you stop chasing things to validate your worth, they start coming to you. This isn't about fake confidence or empty affirmations. It's about healing that quiet belief that says, I need to earn love, success, peace. You don't. You align with those things by knowing you're already enough. That's not just spiritual fluff, it's a strategy. Because when you carry shame, you repel. When you carry certainty, you attract. And if you're tired of running in circles, exhausted from always doing more, this might be the message that breaks the cycle for good. Because what if the missing piece was never your effort, but your energy? You're not tired because you're lazy. You're tired because you've been carrying the weight of everything, trying to fix it all the time. You wake up already behind, race through your day with 1,000 shoulds, and crash into bed feeling like you still didn't do enough. That kind of effort, it eats away at your soul. Not because you're weak, but because no one was meant to live in survival mode 24/7. You're not broken, you're just exhausted from trying so hard without peace. You've been told that success is a grind, that hustle is the price of admission to a good life. So you push, you sacrifice sleep, and you glorify being busy. But tell me, when was the last time you felt deeply fulfilled by that chase? Most people are sprinting toward goals they never questioned, chasing approval from people they don't even admire. Society loves to praise those who never give up, but it rarely celebrates the ones wise enough to stop and ask, why am I still running? See, there's a hidden kind of burnout that comes not from failure, but from effort that never leads anywhere. You check all the boxes, stay productive, stay accountable, and yet something's missing. That something is alignment. When your actions don't match your inner truth, you can do everything right and still feel wrong. It's like rowing harder in the wrong direction, impressive, sure, but pointless. You don't need to row harder. You need to pause and ask, is this river even mine? And let's be real, people rarely talk about the guilt that comes with resting. You finally sit down and boom. The voice in your head says you're being lazy, wasting time, falling behind. That voice isn't truth, it's programming. You've been conditioned to believe your worth is tied to how much you produce. But here's a wild thought. What if rest is not the reward, but the requirement? What if peace is not what you earn after the hustle, but what you're meant to lead with? Some of the most grounded, fulfilled people I've met don't move fast, they move right. They've learned that rushing often leads to regret, not results. Take it from someone who spent years grinding and still felt empty. There's no trophy for the most tired soul. Fulfillment doesn't come from constant effort, it comes from right effort. And right effort begins when you start trusting something deeper than your to-do list. That's where things begin to shift. Because what if the fatigue isn't just physical? What if it's emotional, the fatigue of constantly fixing, pleasing, planning? That kind of tired doesn't go away with 8 hours of sleep. It only fades when you stop living like life is a project to manage. You're not here to be a machine. You're here to be a whole, breathing, feeling person. And that, right there, is where the real kind of trust begins to take root. Trust isn't about sitting back and waiting for magic to fix your life. It's not crossing your arms and saying, well, let's see what happens. No, real trust is quiet action, rooted in calm. It's choosing your steps from a place of confidence, not from panic. When you trust, you still move, but without that frantic energy that says, if I don't do this perfectly, everything falls apart. You're not abandoning effort, you're transforming it. Think of trust like planting a seed. You don't dig it up every hour to see if it's growing. You water it, give it sunlight, and trust the process. That's what trust feels like in real life. Doing your part without obsessively checking the results. You make the call, send the message, take the step, and then you breathe. You don't chase the outcome like it owes you something. You respect it enough to let it unfold. When you start moving from that place, life feels lighter. You're no longer reacting to every twist and turn like it's a crisis. You stop treating silence as rejection or delays as punishment. That gap between action and result becomes sacred. It's where clarity is born. You start hearing your own voice again. You realize that not everything needs your immediate interference. Some things just need your presence. Most people confuse control with care. They think that if they don't micromanage everything, relationships, timing, outcomes, everything will collapse. But the truth is, control is fear in disguise. Trust is the opposite. It's saying, even if I can't see the full picture yet, I believe something good is taking shape. You stop trying to manipulate the timeline and start aligning with it. There's power in that surrender. Let's be clear, trusting doesn't mean doing nothing. It means doing the right things without letting anxiety be your boss. Imagine writing a book. You still show up, write the pages, fix the grammar, but you don't force a bestseller. You write because it's in you, not because you're desperate for validation. That's what aligned effort looks like. It's focused, peaceful, and deeply powerful. And once you experience that peace, it starts to change what you expect from life. You stop measuring your days by how many tasks you crushed and start asking, did I honor my truth today? That shift is subtle, but it's everything. Because when you stop clinging to control, you start creating space. And in that space, something new begins to emerge. You ever notice how the harder you try to control something, the more it slips through your fingers? That relationship, that job opportunity, even your own peace of mind, the more you cling, the more you choke it. That's the paradox no one warns you about. What looks like dedication is often desperation dressed up. When you're always doing more, it's worth asking, is this coming from belief or from fear? Control is a clever liar. It tells you, if you just tighten your grip a little more, everything will go your way. But life isn't a puppet show. People aren't characters you can rewrite. Timing doesn't obey pressure. In fact, trying to force things usually pushes them away. Ever tried to fix someone who didn't want help? That's what it feels like to force life. You mean well, but you end up exhausted and alone with your frustration. Now here's the wild truth. What you're trying to control is often the very thing you don't trust. You over-explain in conversations because you don't trust you'll be understood. You micromanage your schedule because you don't trust yourself to follow through. You chase people because you don't trust they'll stay if you stop performing. But what if you tested the opposite? What if you let go and noticed who or what stayed? There's a reason desperate energy repels. It sends a message to the world that says, I don't believe this can happen without force. And that belief, it leaks into everything, your voice, your posture, your decisions. But when you move from trust, even your silence speaks confidence. You don't need to prove anything. You simply are aligned. That kind of energy doesn't chase, it draws things in naturally. Let me give you something practical. Next time you feel the urge to control, pause and breathe. Ask yourself, what would I do right now if I fully trusted myself? That single question can change the whole direction of your day. Maybe you'll speak less and listen more. Maybe you'll walk away instead of over-explaining. Or maybe you'll take the risk, but without gripping so tightly to the outcome. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. Because at the end of the day, control gives you the illusion of safety, but trust gives you real power. Not noisy power. Not frantic, look at me power. Quiet, magnetic, steady power. The kind that can't be faked. And the moment you taste that, you'll start seeing how much energy you've been wasting all along. When you stop wasting energy on what you can't control, something shifts. Suddenly, you have more room to breathe, to think, to feel. That mental load you carried, rehearsing outcomes, replaying conversations, calculating everyone's reactions, it starts to dissolve. And with that space comes clarity. You begin to see what actually matters. Trust doesn't just free your heart, it sharpens your mind. With that mental clarity, your actions become intentional. You're no longer busy for the sake of being busy. You pause, prioritize, and execute without drama. Instead of chasing 5 things out of fear, you move toward one thing with focus. You answer texts because you want to, not because you're afraid someone will leave. That's the kind of energy shift that makes people look at you and say, "What changed?" And it's not just what you do, it's who you attract. When you stop performing and start living in alignment, you naturally draw people who are aligned too. You won't need to convince them of your worth, because your peace will speak louder than your words ever could. Whether it's friendships, partners, or business allies, they'll show up when your energy says, "I trust myself now." And you'll spot the ones who only showed up for your chaos. You'll also notice that decisions come easier. You no longer agonize over every option, paralyzed by what-ifs. Why? Because you trust that whatever choice you make, you'll handle it. That kind of inner certainty is priceless. It's what makes someone say yes to the job, end the toxic relationship, start the business. Not because they have guarantees, but because they've reclaimed their own compass. Here's something you can do right now. Write down 5 situations where you've been trying to force something. Look at each one and ask, am I acting from fear or from trust? Then make a small shift. Say no to the thing draining you. Let that phone call go to voicemail. Or take a walk instead of trying to fix your entire life in one sitting. These small acts aren't lazy, they're powerful declarations of alignment. Because when you're rooted in trust, you don't need to prove yourself anymore. You become calm, but not passive. Present, but not stuck. And this presence becomes your new power source. From that space, life stops feeling like a problem to solve and starts feeling like a relationship you can finally enjoy. You've probably spent years stuck in urgency, that low-grade panic whispering, "You're behind. Catch up. Do more." It's like background noise you've learned to live with. But urgency isn't always clarity in disguise. Sometimes, it's trauma on autopilot. You're not failing because you're slow. You're struggling because your nervous system was taught that stillness is dangerous. And trust? That's what interrupts the panic and says, "You're safe to slow down now." Once you begin letting go of that urgency, something radical happens. Peace doesn't feel boring anymore. It feels earned. You stop needing chaos to feel alive. You don't seek dramatic highs and lows just to avoid the silence. Instead, you find power in presence. That shift may be subtle at first, skipping a toxic reply, taking a walk instead of spiraling, but it builds a new identity. One that's rooted, not reactive. This is where emotional transformation takes root. You start seeing your delays as divine, not as punishments. A closed door doesn't feel like rejection anymore, but redirection. You stop judging yourself for resting. You stop beating yourself up for not being further ahead. There's a quiet revolution happening inside you, and it's built on the belief that your timing is not broken. It's just finally yours. Psychologically, this rewires how you relate to the world. You stop playing the fix-it-all game. You start letting people carry their own weight. You don't apologize for needing time. And guess what? That doesn't make you selfish, it makes you whole. For the first time, your worth isn't up for negotiation. You walk into rooms without shrinking or explaining. That right there, that's emotional freedom. It also means you stop craving external validation. You stop performing for applause. You don't need a crowd to confirm your value anymore. That doesn't mean you don't appreciate support. It just means you no longer depend on it to feel okay. You're finally becoming someone who can stand still in a storm and say, "I trust my own rhythm." That's not ego, that's alignment with your core. And as you begin living from that place of strength, new choices appear. Not because life got easier overnight, but because your eyes are no longer clouded by panic. You don't chase the loudest path. You follow the clearest one. And that quiet confidence, it starts to shape how you show up in every area of your life. Trusting yourself isn't just about big life decisions. It shows up in the small, honest ones. Like resting when your body says stop, even if your calendar says push through, like saying no to plans that drain you, even if it makes you seem selfish. Real alignment happens when your actions finally match your truth, not your performance. You stop living like you owe the world a version of you that's always available, always pleasing. And that's where you start reclaiming your actual self. You've spent enough time playing roles. The reliable one, the fixer, the overachiever. But none of those masks ever really fit, did they? You wore them because you thought they made you lovable. But love that demands a performance isn't love. It's approval dressed as affection. Realigning with yourself means stepping off that stage. You don't need to audition for acceptance anymore. You just need to come home to who you really are. And here's where it gets interesting. When you live aligned, people will notice. Some will feel threatened. Others will be inspired. That's not your responsibility to manage. Your job isn't to shrink so others feel comfortable. Your job is to become so grounded in who you are that you stop second-guessing your every move. That doesn't mean being loud. It means being unshakable, even when things around you are shifting. You'll also notice your self-worth stops swinging like a pendulum. One compliment won't make your day. One critique won't destroy it. Because now you're not basing your identity on performance metrics. You're basing it on inner peace. You're not who people say you are. You're who you are when no one's watching, and when that version of you feels safe to show up, everything changes. So how do you realign in practice? Start small. Journal your honest thoughts before you check your phone. Go on a walk without a podcast, and listen to your inner voice instead. Ask yourself, what would I choose if I wasn't trying to impress anyone? These aren't just habits, they're tiny homecomings. And each one brings you closer to a version of you that doesn't need permission to exist. And once you meet that version of yourself, the one that doesn't perform, doesn't chase, doesn't pretend, it becomes harder to betray them again. You start protecting your peace like it's sacred. Because it is. You stop abandoning yourself to be liked, and start honoring yourself to be free. And that, my friend, sets the stage for something even deeper to unfold. You don't need to push harder to earn the life you want. You need to match it. And that matching doesn't happen through force, it happens through trust. You align with the version of life that already belongs to you when you stop fighting for scraps and start believing in your own worth. Everything changes when you move from chasing to choosing. Chasing says, I hope this works. Choosing says, I know what's meant for me won't miss me. Most people think effort is the secret. But here's the truth, allowing is the actual power move. Letting go of the need to control every outcome, to impress everyone in the room, to be perfect before you begin. That's what opens the floodgates. Not chaos, not overthinking, not some complex master plan. Just a quiet decision to stop resisting what's already trying to reach you. The universe doesn't respond to panic, it responds to presence. And yes, there will be moments when your old patterns beg you to hustle harder, to prove something, to fix something fast. But you've got to pause and ask, is this action rooted in fear or in trust? That's your compass now. The difference between burnout and breakthrough is often one simple decision: to stop trying harder by default and start allowing life to meet you halfway. So what does that look like? It looks like saying no without guilt, letting people go without resentment, taking a deep breath before responding, releasing outcomes that used to consume your every thought. Maybe it's turning your phone off for the night. Maybe it's deleting a number you know pulls you out of alignment. Trust doesn't need dramatic gestures. It just needs consistent honesty. And with every moment you choose trust, your nervous system heals. Your mind slows down. Your energy clears. You walk into rooms with a presence people can feel, not because you're trying to be impressive, but because you're finally at ease. You've stopped fighting reality and started dancing with it. And that's the most magnetic thing you'll ever do. Because when you stop trying to force what's not yours, what is yours finally finds you. The clarity, the people, the peace, they were never far away. They were just waiting for you to stop fighting the flow. And now that you're here, steady and ready, it's time to welcome what comes next. So now the real question is, are you ready to stop forcing and start allowing? Are you willing to let go of the urgency, the self-doubt, and the constant chase, and finally trust that you're enough to receive what you've been working so hard for? Because if you keep showing up from fear, you'll keep attracting resistance. But if you show up from truth, life opens up in ways you never imagined. What's one thing you've been forcing lately? What would it look like to release that, even just a little, and trust your own timing instead? Let this be your turning point, not because you're perfect, but because you're present. That's all it takes to start transforming your reality from the inside out. If this message spoke to something deep inside you, then you're exactly where you need to be. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and stay with me on this journey. Because this is just the beginning. We've got so much more to unlock together. And now, go watch the next video. Trust me, your next breakthrough might be one click away.